going to kick off episode 71 of the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear with the song Galaxy West. It's from the band The Meteoroids. It's from their self-titled album. You can find them at themeteoroids.bandcamp.com or Facebook or Instagram. However you check them out, let them know that you heard about them here on this here podcast. My name's Derek M. Cook, the writer, host, and producer of Bride of Monster Kid Radio, welcoming you to the show. So we're going to do things a little different this time around. We're not looking at cinema. We're going to talk about another topic that is near and dear to my Monster Kid / Star Kid heart. We're going to talk about Star Trek. Now, I think there is a lot of crossover, especially between classic Star Trek and the Monster Kid movies, the kinds of movies that us Monster Kids dig. And that's going to be kind of like the jumping off point, or was the jumping off point, behind the idea of this episode. I opened it up. I invited a number of people to come join us. And, well, a couple of Monster Kid Radio Irregulars showed up for the conversation. Steve Sullivan and Jeff Polier. They're both here with me this week to talk about all things Star Trek. Okay, maybe not all things. I would make a much longer podcast than what this is. But they did sit down with me for a couple of hours to talk about Star Trek. And really, the conversation went all over the place. In places that I did not expect, and sometimes in places that I did expect. Some politics stuff does come up, but nothing too distracting. We do talk about Artemis 2. Steve, in particular, was bringing some knowledge about what was going on with Artemis 2 and that sort of thing. So this is just a fun conversation between three friends who happen to really, really love Star Trek. So that's coming up in this week's episode. And of course, Star Trek was covered in Famous Monsters of Filmland, which means Kenny's here with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. That's going to be here too. You know, there's another franchise that we talk about here on the show, though, another long-running science fiction television franchise, and that's Ultraman. Mark Matzke's here with the Beta Capsule review, talking about every single episode of Ultraman, every single episode, every season. And we're in Ultraman Taro right now, so we're going to be doing that too. In fact, why don't we get to all of that right about now?
An army of deadly predators, searching, destroying anything in their path.
He's over at Colby's. He's found another 20 or 30 hills just like the one we burned.
Why did they come? What do they want?
Spiders in this area have organized themselves into an aggressive army.
William Shatner, Tiffany Bowling, your nightmares will never be the same. Kingdom of the Spiders. Rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
What is it?
I don't know.
Ejected from unexplored secret stratus, this giant, harder than steel piston, disgorges strange creatures, inundating our world, twisting the emotions of women, distorting our men.
This is a piece we got off the mayor. Reflex action like a snake. Cut a snake in half and the two pieces go off in different directions.
These things take over a man's mind? He becomes a robot? A machine taking orders?
Join the hunt for the hiding place of terror. Find the breeding place of these globs of destruction.
In feeding the mouth parts, rupture the cells, convey the food to the stomach by a pumping action.
It's an adventure that'll burst your blood vessels with suspense. See The Brain Eaters.
Night of the Lepus. Rated PG.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review.
Ultraman Taro, Episode 29. Bemstar revives. Taro's in a desperate pinch. Original air date, October 19th, 1973. Out of the depths of space comes alien Yapul, heralding the return of fearsome flying monster Bemstar. Its first victim is ZAT Space Station No. 1, whose distress signals reach ZAT Japan moments too late. Flying to the dark side of the moon, they arrive just in time to witness the space station being absorbed into Bemstar's midsection before disappearing. Back on Earth, ZAT studies footage of Ultraman Jack's battles with Bemstar, which inspires a plan for a new weapon. Kotaro and Lieutenant Aragaki draw the grim responsibility of informing the family of the space station commander's demise. The commander's son is an acquaintance of Kenichi, and the loss of his friend's father, along with a chorus of complaints about ZAT's track record against kaiju, causes him to question his loyalty to ZAT and Kotaro. A young adult named Umino, hoping to inspire the boys in the neighborhood, tries to take on Bemstar himself with a homemade bomb. In order to save him, Kotaro transforms, but Bemstar is more than ready to defeat another Ultraman. 29 episodes into Taro, there's been a notable evolution in the series. What began as a colorful caricature of Ultraman bordering on parody has become moderately serious in tone. The death of parental figures is often central to the story, and disappointment is often expressed with authorities that are supposed to keep people safe, like ZAT. Their inability to quickly neutralize Bemstar results in a stunning scene in which a crowd of kids are cheering for Bemstar to destroy an oil refinery so that Ultraman Taro will appear and do what ZAT can't. That's not to say Taro has abandoned its original sense of fun. Episode 29 features the most audacious human kaiju contact scene to date. But the stakes seem higher all around. Adults can die, Ultraman can be defeated, and kids can either give in to despair or fight back. A stirring message for any era. For Bride of Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
The Monster Bash convention is coming your way fast. It's the gathering of monster movie fans from all around the country with a film festival, guest movie and TV stars, and vendors of collectibles, plus writers and artists. The Monster Bash convention is June 12th through the 14th, 2026 at the Pittsburgh Marriott North. You can meet and chat with actor Gary Conway, the Teenage Frankenstein, in movies from the 1950s. He also appeared in Land of the Giants, Burke's Law, and so much more. It's Butch Patrick from the original Munsters TV show. Get an autograph from this television icon. Daniel Roebuck will be there. Happy to meet you. He was Grandpa in the most recent Munsters movie and is one of the greatest memorabilia collectors in the world. Plus a director, writer, and producer of fantastic family films. Director and writer Jack Hill will appear. He was the last person to direct Boris Karloff in films, known for writing and directing the cult movie classic Spider Baby. Actress Beverly Washburn, a fan favorite, will appear at Monster Bash. She starred in Spider Baby, Disney's Old Yeller, Boris Karloff's Thriller TV show, Star Trek, and many more. Producer Bill Diamond will have a massive Muppet display as he worked on many Jim Henson projects and has original Muppets to showcase in an immersive setup. Plus, he's the man behind the documentary series on artist Basil Gogos, a famous Monsters magazine. And it doesn't stop there. Marriott McKnight, a former Miss America, will be at Monster Bash, along with Ohio TV legendary horror host Son of Ghoul, and low-budget monster movie maker David the Rock Nelson will perform a live magic show on stage. Film Fest, movie and TV stars, wall-to-wall collectible vendors. It's Monster Bash, June 12th through the 14th, 2026 at the Pittsburgh Marriott North. Go to the website to see so much more. monsterbash.us. That's monsterbash.us. It's where monster fans converge for the super expo of entertainment.
Hello there, Bride of Monster Kid Radioheads. This is Kenny with a look at famous monsters of Filmland. Today we will be talking about Star Trek. The original series was featured in FM 64 from April of 1970. The article was entitled Stark Trek, Trek or Treat Among the Stars. It was 7 pages long with 9 photos of monstrous aliens from the show. Let's hear the introduction. Star Trek shall not die. Save Star Trek was the battle cry of hundreds of thousands of fanatic fans of the weekly Space Shoal TV treat that captured more imaginations than any monster ever captured maidens. The hue and cry of Trekkies kept Star Trek on the air longer than any adult space program before. Space Next could not get enough of intrepid Captain Kirk, imperturbable Mr. Spock, and the incredible far-flung, star-sung adventures of the invincible ship Enterprise. Alien life forms, mutants, monsters abounded in the astounding episodes of Star Trek. For instance, do you remember the segment scripted by Robert Bloch in collaboration with Dorothy Fontana? It was called Cat's Paw. A full synopsis of the episode follows. I know this is not a fan favorite, but young Kenny was creeped out by the spooky elements of this story, especially the beginning, described here in the telebook. The starship is orbiting Pyrrhus 7, a black and foreboding world. Below, on its surface, Sulu and Scott and Jackson are making a preliminary exploration. Kirk and Spock are worried because the trio is a half-hour late in check-in. At least Lieutenant Uhura established contact with Jackson, who requests beam-up. When Jackson rematerializes through the energizing process, he appears like a zombie. Before he can tell what has happened to the others, he keels over dead. Or is he? Dr. McCoy pronounces him so, but an alien voice in deep tones issues from his motionless lips. There is a curse on your ship. Leave this place or you will all die. Spock observes, this is most illogical. Dead men do not speak. This is not the end of Star Trek in FM, for we also covered the first 2 movies, but I'll save those till we do another Star Trek podcast. That is all for this week's look at famous monsters of Filmland. We will have more next time. For BMKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
At the edge of the universe, 400 men and women are probing the immeasurable blackness of space. Their leaders are an Earthman with no fear and a stranger with no heart. Travel beyond our time and solar system, into new galaxies, into worlds beyond your dreams. Star Trek, every week, in color on the NBC television network.
All right, Bride of Monster Kid Radio. I love Star Trek. I don't hide this fact. I talk about Star Trek a lot, but I've not talked about Star Trek here on the show. In fact, I've only talked about it once proper here on the podcast itself, although for a while there on the Twitch stream, I would do some things with one of our guests, and I'm going to have him and our other guest introduce himself here in a second. But this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Star Trek. We're going to talk about original series, the new stuff, the stuff from the 90s, the Bremen era, all of it. And it'd be a nice short conversation because there's not really much to say, right? Why don't we go ahead and have the other people here on our panel, on our show, introduce themselves. And because he was here first, Jeff, take it away.
Elliott frequencies open. This is Commander Jeff Polier, responding from the USS Carla Hayden, stationed at Memory Alpha.
Yeah, and I understood all that. Hi, this is Steve Sullivan, otherwise known as Stephen D. Sullivan, author, artist, designer, all that kind of stuff. Creator of the Dr. Cushing book and role-playing game, among other things. So, and a lifelong Star Trek fan. I mean, I am older than you, and therefore feel pretty safe to say that I am the only one of this trio that actually watched Star Trek, the original series in its original run. Not all of it, but some of it. Brain, what is brain?
That's the episode you quote?
That is one of the episodes I remember seeing when it first ran on the air. Another one is Cat's Paw, which was the Halloween episode, the Robert Bloch episode. So among the Robert Bloch episodes.
Sure.
So there you go.
So technically, Derek and I are old enough to have seen the animated series, some of it when it first aired, but I would bet we didn't.
I remember.
Did you just say you're glad you didn't? I love the animated series.
Oh no, not glad we didn't, but I'm sure we didn't, because we would have been one.
Yeah,
when new episodes stopped.
I remember seeing it on Nickelodeon on a random Saturday morning.
Right. Whereas, when I grew up, what is Nickelodeon? Oh, that's the thing you put a nickel in the penny candy store to watch the old film reel.
And now people are like, what is Nickelodeon? Because it's not around anymore, right? So
I'm not sure. I think it's probably.
I don't know.
On cable, if anyone actually has cable, we have like a streaming cable service where we got to pick our streams, and the reason we have it is Turner Classic Movies, which shows Star Trek occasionally. So there's your tie-in.
Does it really?
Yeah. Yeah, they will show the movies.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that makes
sense. Not the TV show.
I guess, technically. To kind of tie into the conversation Beth and I had last week about what is technically a classic. Are the Star Trek movies classic enough to be on Turner Classic Movies? I mean, I guess if you're looking at just age, maybe.
Yeah, at least the first two. I know they've played both the motion picture and Wrath of Khan. For sure.
What,
they may have played some others.
82, I think, are the years of those.
82, 83, I thought. Yeah, right around there.
But its motion picture was definitely 70-something. I think it was
78 or 9, and then Khan was around 82.
Yep.
So
yeah, early 80s.
Having seen those in the theater.
Yeah, I do remember seeing Wrath of Khan in the theater. I was there. I cried when Spock died. I was there, man.
My grandpa took me to see Wrath of Khan. And he was being a great grandpa. He wasn't a Star Trek fan, and he did not understand why I was bawling at the end of the movie.
Whereas my memory of that movie is that my friends and I, working at TSR, who were going to see it, the early show must have been sold out. The 7:00 show, I think, the first night it came out, and so we spent we bought the later show tickets. And then spent what would have been the entire early show drinking in the bar next door to the theater, which was not the best way to get the full emotional impact.
Yeah.
I don't recommend getting drunk or whatever before Wrath. It's still the best of the Trek movies, I think.
I know I saw the motion picture in the theater. I don't have any memory of seeing it theatrically, but I have very strong memory of the toys that came in the Happy Meals for the motion picture. Yeah, with the the little cardboard fold together shuttlecrafts and things like that. I had those hanging in my bedroom for years and was convinced there were little people inside there that would see me if I changed clothes in front of them. So I would only put on my pajamas when it was turned away from me.
We've heard of the people under the stairs. These are the people in the cardboard shuttle, I guess.
Right. And wasn't there like a little tricorder looking thing that you could spin the part of the story through? I don't remember. I remember having those toys and I loved them. Yeah. But you already talked about it a little bit, Steve. I wanted to kick things off by talking about our first exposure to Star Trek. And you said you watched it originally during its original run.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know for sure. I don't remember if I saw any of the first season shows in the original run. I may have, but I definitely saw Cat's Paw because it was a Halloween episode, and I've been a monster kid. I guess the sci-fi kid is secondary to the monster kid. See, the monster kid, I literally don't remember not being a monster kid. And of course, it was a Halloween show, and it's like, oh my God, there's this show about Halloween, and it's got science fiction thing in it. What is this? And of course, I entirely missed the Cthulhu connection for that way back then. But it's really, really obvious to me now, because obviously Block was one of the associates of H.P. Lovecraft and that kind of stuff. And even if you look at the very end where you see the little creatures, they're little tentacle Cthulhu-like creatures in the 1960s television, which was awesome. So yeah, I think that's probably my first one. And then I do remember is it That Which Survives? I remember That Which Survives from the first run, which I think is third season, and the Spock's Brain. Definitely remember those three from the very early first run of Star Trek, the original series. And I've been a fan ever since.
Cat's Paw was second season, Spock's Brain, That Which Survives were third season. And I know I kind of made a joke about Spock's Brain. I know a lot of people consider it to be one of the worst episodes of Star Trek. I actually find part of it charming. So
yeah, me too. I think it's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, spoilers, the idea of taking someone's brain out of their body and having them run an entire city like as though it was a bodily system, I mean, that's really, really cool. And there's a lot of stuff I like there, but as you said, I know a lot of people hate that, but then a lot of people hate Star Trek the motion picture too. I mean, my memory of that is going and I saw that by myself at college at a mid-afternoon show, and then went back to the college, and either that day or the next day at the newspaper, I worked at the college newspaper. Some of the other people have seen it, and they said, "Boy, that sucked." I was like, "Well, I didn't say it sucked. I thought it was. I mean, all those special effects were sure cool, but it definitely kind of deserves a little bit of that motionless picture."
But what a score to go with those images.
Yeah, the music's gorgeous.
Yeah, the music's great, obviously. I mean, they used it for the Star Trek The Next Generation, among other things.
Yeah. So the idea of using a living brain to power the computer run society, that was even used in an episode of Strange New Worlds, one of the newest series. I don't know a lot of the episode titles from Strange New Worlds yet, but...
Is that the one with the little kid?
Yeah, it turns out there's this kid that has been raised specifically because it is going to be plugged into the computer and it's going to suck. And, Prime Directive says that Captain Pike can't do anything about it, and he doesn't. It's not one of the comedy episodes of Strange New Worlds. It is a seriously deep episode.
Yeah.
Is a new series of that running right now? We dropped our Paramount.
So we are currently in a black hole of Star Trek at this point. Starfleet Academy season 1 came to an end. We are waiting for the next season of Strange New Worlds to pick up, which I think is happening soon, sometime this year. So we're kind of waiting for that to pick up. Have they announced it coming out?
Looking right now, I don't see a date. Just 2026.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that.
We'll probably tune in. I think our current plan is, because we don't want to give Paramount a lot of money for various reasons, is probably wait till the series is done and then sign up for a month and binge it. And we haven't seen Academy for the same reason, because we dropped them because, various reasons we don't have to go into on a happy podcast like this. But so there's still plenty of Trek out there.
Some coming, so hopefully with the regime changes at Paramount.
One of the streaming services just in the last week had the first season of every Star Trek series, not including the newest ones, except for Enterprise. And you can get the entire first season of Original Trek, Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, Voyager, Discovery, and I think that was all of them for $1 each.
Oh, geez.
Wow. On Picard for $1 each. And then the second season was $4. So we did not have all of those in our library, and now we do.
Right on. Well, Jeff, going to you then, Steve talked about how he first saw. What are your earliest memories of watching Star Trek? Do you have any?
So I know I watched Star Trek as far back as kindergarten, which would have made it 1978. I probably saw Star Wars first. And then my mom would have said, oh, hey, here's this other Star thing that's in reruns on KPTV, Channel 12 Portland. And so I watched Star Trek starting from there. And back then, there just wasn't much merchandise for Star Trek in the 70s and 80s. And compared to Star Wars, there still isn't. So most of my toys and stuff were Star Wars, but Star Trek was something I could watch at least every week. Depending on the year, I could watch it every day. Well, Star Wars, especially the days before home video, it was toys, comics, sometimes novels, but Star Trek was something I could experience more often. And so I really developed the love for it, and I've never been one of those people who is Star Wars or Star Trek. I don't need to make a decision. I can love them both.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Star Trek is clearly better, so I just, no.
Well, although if I had to pick one, I would be picking Star Trek because it's...
I probably would too, because while there are certainly episodes that don't have any deep meaning, Star Trek more often, there's meat on those bones. It's not just entertainment. It's something to think about.
It shows a way forward.
Star Wars is usually pretty superficial. Now, I enjoy the overall themes, good defeating evil, no kings, no emperors, but...
Well, it's space opera. I mean, there's nothing wrong with space opera, whether it's...
No, Star Trek usually means something. And I really like that. Plus, if I'm going to pick one, there's just plain more Star Trek to enjoy.
Yeah.
We have all these series spanning back decades to before you and I were born, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Not Steve. Haha.
Yeah, Reverend.
Star Wars has some awfully good stuff. The Disney Plus shows, I don't think
Andor was
Andor's been a sneaker among them. Some people complain, I don't.
Andor's great. If you haven't watched the
Andor is so good. It's so good it could be Star Trek.
Here.
Wow. Shots fired.
To be clear, I grew up loving Star Wars. I was a Star Wars kid. It was like, because it came out during my lifetime and I saw the first film and the second film in the theater, it was like my franchise. I could take some ownership of it, even though I probably shouldn't have. I took some ownership of it as a fan and grew up with Star Wars. And Star Wars was in my life nonstop. Star Wars bed sheets, Star Wars towels, Star Wars curtains. Multiple birthdays were Star Wars themed. I had all the toys, had everything. There were 2 times in my life growing up that I can remember not wanting to do something Star Wars related as a kid because I loved Star Wars so much. But you're right. Star Trek is about something. A lot of Star Wars is just pew pew. And that's okay. That's okay.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm a big Flash Gordon fan too, right?
Right.
And those are almost 100 years old now. But there's not a lot of extra meaning to them. And again, we're not dissing Star Wars because
not at all. I haven't talked about Star Wars here on the show proper. At some point, I probably will. Probably be the most downloaded episode because it is Star Wars. But you're right. There's not a lot of merch either for Star Trek. And some of the early merch is just ridiculous and was made fun of, like in Lower Decks with like the Spock helmet and things like that. Just some awful merch.
Rightfully made fun of.
Yeah.
Although it had great books. I mean, the original David Gerrold Star Trek book is just, if you haven't read his Star Trek, making of Star Trek book, I don't remember what it's called. It's fabulous. And the one that came out around the same time was really, really good too. So, Trek had the merch of the day and then eventually Mego figures, I think, kind of stuff. And that's MEGO, not the Lovecraftian brain seal. Sure. This would be fun figures to have too. But
speaking of books, even back in the 70s, most of the Star Trek books weren't original material. They were adaptations of the episodes. They were the James Blish books that adapted the live action series. And then there were I think Alan Dean Foster did the ones that adapted the animated series episodes.
Oh, you could be right. Yeah. We've got all the Blish books here.
And again, that's another way that I experienced Star Trek over and over again, because even if I couldn't watch it on TV for some reason, I read those books over and over and over.
Star Trek was blessed with syndication that ran sometimes on several different channels at several different times of the day. And you could watch Star Trek probably 5 to 7 days a week from the early 1970s until 1980s, when cable became more ubiquitous and choices became wider.
Yeah.
In Portland, it was only on the one station, but there were years where it was every weekday instead of just Saturday or just Sunday.
I had that too in Cheyenne, Wyoming. There was a channel, the local channel probably, that was showing every TOS episode, original series episode, in order. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever when I realized, oh, they're in order too? That's great.
Yes.
I had my little 25 years of Star Trek magazine that had all the episode titles in it and some information about first season and next gen. And I was going through, okay, so this is the one I want to watch. Okay, I can skip that one. Oh, I love Day of the Dove. That one's playing which day? Okay, cool. So yeah.
I'm not sure Child's Welfare or Portland, I have no idea what order they ran them in. And the thing about the original series is it doesn't usually matter much because there's almost no continuity throughout the entire series.
Like a lot of classic television.
It's like a lot of classic television.
Classic television is fun to watch because you don't need to know what came before or what came after. They're going to give you an entire story flat out. And maybe there's some echoes of something previous, like in The Fugitive, there's always echoes of other things that have happened in the show. But you can still drop in anywhere and enjoy it. So, yeah, that the order, it's cool to see them in order, but it doesn't really matter. And then are you going with broadcast order? Are you going with production order?
Production, yeah, because they juggled that up, especially at the beginning. It's
cool. Shows still do that today, which kind of boggles my mind.
I don't understand that either. Like the networks, the people, the network execs don't,
even things with like the Monster Quest or the Expedition shows, it's like, why are they showing Expedition 3 when we haven't seen 1 and 2 this season yet? It's like, oh, okay, now it's over to 6, and now we're doing 1 and 2. There's some marketing there, I'm sure.
A marketing commerce thing that they think they know better than us, and we think we know better than them. So, who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can either show where no man's gone before and kind of get a slightly different crew and a slightly different setting, or you can have the man trap.
Right. Which is a great episode.
Which is a fun episode, but it's like, when you finally see where no man gone before, it's like, who are these people?
Who is Gary Mitchell? Where was he in the previous? I don't understand.
Well, is this with Dr. Boyce? Dr. McCoy.
Yeah, where's Dr. Boyce? That's what I'm waiting for. Because Strange New Worlds is talking about easing into a Star Trek Year 1 kind of thing with Kirk and all them taking over the Enterprise. And I'm like, well, you're going to bring in Dr. Boyce before Dr. McCoy, right? Right? Same. Yeah. I go through periods where I read the Star Trek novels. Sometimes I just consume them nonstop, and sometimes I kind of just read other things. But right now I'm in a Star Trek novel phase. And I was telling Jeff, actually, I think it was you, Jeff, that I was talking to about. I just finished reading No Time Like the Past by Greg Cox. And I love that it's obvious Greg Cox is a monster kid. He's got references to Creature from the Black Lagoon in here. There is an aquatic planet referred to as Rico, and I love that. And right now I'm reading Dayton Ward's From History's Shadow, which kind of picks up after Assignment Earth, but also references Little Green Men from Deep Space Nine and some other things and all that. And I know Little Green Men did have a Denning and a Carlson and all that, but he's really expanding on those characters as well. So I love that it's obvious that even though we might have been monster kids from the get-go, from the jump, some of the people at least working on the ancillary media are monster kids too. and having these little in jokes and references and all that. And I love that. So I just feel at home anytime I do anything Star Trek wise as a Monster Kid.
Yeah. No, and it's cool. And there's still so much of it. I haven't kept up since the original Blish novels and then the Vonda McIntyre adaptations of some of the early films.
That's some good stuff.
But I think I'm in a professional group with Greg Cox, among many other people. And it's gotten to the point where I don't do this, but if I wanted to, I could just read books by people I know for in a professional group with for the rest of my life, and I would never have time to read anything else. And so, but it's great that all that stuff is out there. And thinking Star Trek I don't think I ever worked on a Star Trek project, which is...
I know you've done a lot. You've done a lot of different media.
I don't even think I managed to do any maps for any of the various Star Trek role-playing games.
Well, into your media.
Though I did play the Star Trek role-playing game at TSR. We had a game of the original Star Trek role-playing game.
By FASA?
Run by Tracy Hickman.
Wow, is it the FASA game?
Lance and many other things, yeah. We were all at Tracy's house, and Tracy had an adjunct order that said under Federation rules, you could never beam people down to a planet without having a command officer with them, which explained why Kirk and Spock and all those guys were always leaving the bridge, have them down and get shot at.
I love that.
So
that's a
real rule.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly it was a rule. Was it the FASA role-playing game?
Yeah, this was the FASA role.
Oh, I loved the FASA. That's the only one I've ever played. And I used to run it nonstop for my friends.
Yeah, me too.
The FASA game was so much fun. So much fun.
Oh, there's also a great board game called Starfleet Battles.
I think the FASA game actually references that, doesn't it? It's like, if you ever want to do Starfleet combat or Starship combat, you got to buy this other game.
We used to play that too. We also had I don't remember if I played this, which may or may not reflect once. We had a version called Starfleet Bottles, where in order to regenerate the shields and the other damage to the ship, there was like a list of drinks you had to take. One shot equals one shield level. So,
oh gosh. Oh wow. Well, suddenly your prep for watching Star Trek 2 makes a little bit more sense.
And that was the days before Synthahol was a thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And they just wave it off.
Synthahol, if it was real, would you really want it?
As somebody who doesn't really drink, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Some days yes, some days no. Man.
So that is actually something I was going to ask you guys about, because there's so much Star Trek. It's set in the future, obviously. It's futuristic. It's got a lot of tech that we don't have now. Probably not Synthahol, but if there is something from the franchise that you wish you had access to today, what would it be?
Ooh. Well, replicators are so close now. It's hard
to there. Yeah, with the 3D printers and all that.
Want the replicators, because 3D printers are kind of replicators, and they are being used to treat everything. Having had lifelong illnesses, I'd probably say I want their.
Yeah, I lean more towards the medical field stuff also, because again, this is my showing a preference of Trek over Wars. I want to help people, and yes, the war the rebellion is fighting in Star Wars is important and ultimately helps people, but I want people to not hurt and not be sick. And the advanced medicine of the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and what is Discovery? 32nd century?
Yeah, way out there now.
Yeah, I just think the world could be a better place even if the healthcare, the medical knowledge we have available was available to more people. And if it was also easier to administer, that would be even better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Now
on Medicare, my early reaction is, oh, this is so much easier.
Star Trek 4, Dr. McCoy gives the lady in the hospital a pill that he just happens to have in his bag, and she grows a new kidney.
Right.
It would be so great if medicine was that easy.
It would be.
You know, with all the pains that some of us have, whether from injury or old age, and I'm thinking of myself and Beth, you know.
No, a lot of friends, you know. I'm at the age where a lot of friends are accumulating illnesses.
With Dr. Bashir, and we wouldn't have our pains anymore. I like that.
So the medicine would be good. It's hard not to pick something like warp drive, which would really expand our knowledge of the universe, or the transporter. Although the transporter is always like, it's a really cool idea, but once it disintegrates you, is it really you that comes back?
Yeah.
Would you ever even know? Someone I know, maybe it was Bill Willingham. It could have been Bill. It could have been someone else that I know a lot of really clever people, called the transporter the murdering clone machine, because it disintegrates the original you and recreates you with atoms somewhere else, right? So, and that's a little freaky. That, in theory, it'd be wonderful to step onto a pad in Milwaukee and come out and visit Derek in Arizona. But in point of fact, is that actually me? And I wrote a as yet unpublished short story where they discovered that, well, they transport your body, but your soul is gone. Once you die, your soul, and eventually the world becomes, mobbed by soulless people, and terrible things happen.
The real world problem with any of those technologies is then they get used by the people who already have money to make more money.
Right.
And
Star Trek doesn't have money.
Or even the medical stuff, they're going, unless you can find a way to get it released publicly, people are, certain people are just going to be making a profit off of it instead of helping people. A piece of real world technology that exists because of Star Trek is hyposprays.
Right.
They've been in existence since the late 1980s. I have never had a hypospray. The technology exists, but when I go and get an inoculation or anything else, there's still sticking a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
Right. So there are some
technology exists. It doesn't get disseminated like it should.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and part of that in Trek, obviously, is because they don't really, in the Federation anyway, they don't have money.
Right.
Yeah.
That it's once you have a replicator, there's not what do you need money for? It's like we're taking base elements and we're making a hand sandwich. So obviously you don't need to give money to XYZ for their ham and XYZ for the bread, and et cetera, et cetera. And
right.
So that's why a replicator would be a really great thing to have, even though our 3D printers are
a replicator.
They can 3D print houses. They can 3D print many small things. They could. I don't know if you guys watched the moonshot, the Artemis moonshot, but part of me was thinking, it would be really great if on your moonlanders you had like a little 3D printer, 0G 3D printer, so you could print little pieces in case something broke in your ship on the way to or from the moon. And we could be close to that kind of stuff. We're not close to using the transporter style technology to whip up Earl Grey tea in a cup out of nothing. But we're getting close with some of this stuff.
The great thing about replicators is it means vegetarians can start eating meat again because no actual animals were harmed. Derek, you could have a bacon cheeseburger without guilt.
Bacon was never
if we're going to have Thanksgiving in space, I want my crew to have something that tastes like turkey.
It's the meatloaf that comes out looking like the turkey, right? That was one of the episodes, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was some kind of like that Kirk went through in one of the original episodes.
Just as long as Polier doesn't order the turkey.
There you go.
There's a preference for you.
Okay. So you mentioned the Star Trek 4 giving somebody a pill that grows them a new kidney or whatever. I'm just going to give a shout out to another novel, Lost to Eternity, again by Greg Cox, which follows a podcaster in modern day investigating the disappearance of Dr. Taylor Julian Taylor from Star Trek 4. And part of it is this other organization trying to figure out what magical pill that woman took to regrow a kidney. And there's this kind of shadow thing going on there as well. And it's really good.
And how did this guy come up with transparent aluminum?
You're right. Well, see, that doesn't come up. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and reread it. But I thought it was cool as a podcaster. It's like, hey, there's a podcaster in a Star Trek novel. That's awesome. But no, that comes up like how they're trying to track down the woman who grew a new kidney and her family's getting paid off to maybe donate her body to science or whatever. It's really cool. I would probably go with the medical thing too. I think if I was younger, it'd be like holodecks. Give me a holodeck. I want to play Dungeons and Dragons in real life. I want a holodeck. But as somebody who does have, I told you all before we started, I've got 2 days with 4 different doctor's appointments and 4 different clinics next week. I would love to be able to just take that one magic pill or spend half an hour on the bed in McCoy. I'll settle for McCoy. I don't care. Dr. Boyce. I'll sit on their med bed for half an hour and let them do whatever it is they need to do to fix everything in my body, and I'd be happy. So, yeah, I'd probably go with the medical. As much as the transporter would be cool, warp would be cool, all that stuff would be awesome. Universal translator.
Yeah. And we're so close to universal translator in some ways, too. At least for this planet. Right? Little apps on our phones, so we can talk into the phone.
Right.
Depending upon what you're using. The more expensive phones than I have, you talk in and they'll talk out in the language that you're trying to talk in.
I think we all have seen the ads on Facebook or Twitch or not Twitch, TikTok or Instagram. The smart glasses that are supposed to be able to translate or whatever. And I think that's cool.
Well, and I've got a friend who's got a set of glasses that it simulates the environment of a full movie screen inside these glasses he puts on. Nice glasses he puts on his head. And I don't think they're the huge Pfizer things anymore either. They're just glasses. And it's like, I think I'm going to watch that on the glasses, which makes it's not even like a wall-sized screen. It's like a full movie theater screen inside the glasses. And a lot of that stuff is from Star Trek. Many people were inspired by the stuff in Star Trek to create the pads and to create the phone apps and the communicator kind of thing.
MP3s. Listening to audio to music digitally was inspired by Star Trek.
Right.
So,
and as much as I love Star Wars, there aren't,
we don't have any lightsabers.
Create lightsabers now and again. How useful is that really in the real world? Whereas the communicator style communications is really hugely useful.
Funny you should mention that, because something I actually looked into just a week or two ago was, it occurred to me, one of the concerns in various parts of the planet, even in this country, is access to clean water. And I was thinking, well, we have Star Trek stuff coming out, but one of the first things we encounter in the original Star Wars movie are moisture evaporators. Do we have moisture evaporators? I looked it up, and we don't. But they are working on them, and they're getting kind of close to the idea of what could be working moisture evaporators that you could set up in a desert state like Arizona, and it would collect what little moisture there is in the atmosphere and condense it, and you would have clean water in these areas that are super arid.
They just use it as a data center anyway. Come on.
Right. Well, and they do have desalinators and that kind of stuff. The interesting thing is that there are ancient technologies that desert people used that would actually catch and hold moisture and channel it underground. There are a lot of places I think in Chile and South America and Mexico where they're like these mysterious, why do they have all these underground channels? And it was all about capturing moisture from the air and funneling it into catch basins and that kind of stuff. But again, that would be a very useful technology from Star Wars.
Sure.
That we don't have. Whereas from Star Trek, and again, you don't have to love one or other. I love them both. But Star Trek has inspired so many people to do so many bits of technology and the way things work and the way we interact with our computers now. And that stuff is very...
I've never heard of someone in NASA or a medical field saying they were inspired by Star Wars.
Yeah, and although maybe some of the rocketry...
I became a doctor because of Star Trek.
Did you guys, by any chance, catch the moonshot this week at all? Because of the way our news is set up now, we didn't. My wife and I are huge moonheads, right? Huge original NASA kids from back in the day. Watched the original moon landings, all that kind of stuff. Didn't even know this was happening until I think the day before, the day of the launch. But then watched a whole bunch of it from the launch all the way down to we watched, I don't know, 5 or 7 hours worth of splashdown coverage the other day. And then this morning they had a news conference from yesterday. They were like, I was like, oh, I'm only going to watch a couple of minutes. I just want to see them and all. But ended up watching the entire news conference. And one of the things that struck me about all of the new generation, this new Artemis generation of space travel, is how much it reminds me of the camaraderie and the crew and the goals and aims of Star Trek, particularly. Watching this crew of 4 very diverse people who had gone on this journey around the moon together and talking about how their perspectives, which echo the perspectives of the old astronauts, but this was a group that they're all on stage together, and after every one of them talks, they're not the emotionless jet pilot test astronauts that we used to get. This is like they'd all talk, they'd start tearing up, the other ones would come in, they'd all hug each other, and it was like it really was very Star Trek crew-like in the way that all this stuff is being done now. And it's, for me, the echoes of Trek and the promise of Trek in a future where we all do things together and go out and explore for the good of all mankind rather than the kind of Ferengi, well, what's in it for me stuff that is, honest to God, too much of that going on in our society lately, and even in sections of our space race. And all of that seemed to have been left aside, so that when there were people that weren't from NASA and associated things that got up, there was a couple of politicians that got up and talked briefly in the press conference, and it was almost shocking, like a slap in the face, to hear people talking about politics and political figures and political concerns in this thing that had been entirely dominated by science and exploration and camaraderie and that kind of stuff. And it was heartening to see so much of the spirit of what I would call the spirit of the original Star Trek series, and the continuing ones too, in NASA and in space exploration again. So I would recommend check out highlight reels at the very least, and the pictures from the moon looking back at the Earth and stuff with the moon and the Earth. Just amazing. I'm totally back into the space race again, baby.
Well, the cool thing too about all the pictures and all that, all the pictures that NASA has released or produced from all of that, that's all in the public domain.
Yeah.
Nobody owns that. And
we own that. We all own it.
Yeah, we all own it. And they've taken it a step further. They've prepared the perfect size pictures for desktops and phone wallpapers and everything else. So you can go and carry that with you as you go, which I think is totally cool. I pretty much, as a public domain copyright nerd, was like, oh, that's so cool.
Right. And I was impressed with the little pre-press conference and pre-stuff that they did, where they had kind of like a little sizzle reel with the 4 astronauts together, where they're all posed like they're, we watch racing, so we watch F1, and they always start with shots of the racers. They all do them in order of ranking from last year or whatever, but in terms of the astronauts, it was just like, here's this woman, here's this man, here's what these people do. And then kind of standing there looking cool, and like a little cool quote of stuff that they aspire to in terms of exploring outer space and stuff. And it's just like, oh man, part of our society is so close to Star Trek, part of our society. And another part is often Irregulars.
What I wish is that people would look at those photos of Earth from space and realize that for the most part, I mean, there are some natural borders, but for the most part, borders are artificial.
Yeah.
It's one planet. We're in this together. It's
right.
It should not be me first. It should be, if I have extra, I can help.
Right.
It'd be, if I don't have enough, someone's going to help me because we're all in this together. And
right.
I'm really feeling my lack of antidepressants right now.
Thinking of needing Star Trek Medical, right?
Yeah.
The woman that was on the crew in the press conference today, she talked about, they talked about the fact the four people that did this, they are bonded for life because they haven't had an experience together over 10 days.
Yeah.
No one else in the world has ever had or ever will have. They've literally gone farther into space than any humans beings have gone. They've seen the Earth from a vantage point that no one has ever seen it from with human eyes. And what she talked about was, they all talked about how everyone is, everything you've ever heard of is in this little blue marble hovering out in space. And what she talked about, one of the things she mentioned this morning was not only that, but how big and empty everything else was. Had the void of blackness all around them, with the moon, the bright gray moon, and the little blue-green marble out beyond that. And that's our home. That is where all of us are, and where all of us have to work together in order to preserve our home and make sure that we can reach, she didn't say a Star Trek future, but I'd be surprised if a lot of us weren't watching it and thinking, and reach the Star Trek future together, where we can explore and we don't have money and everyone has what they want and everyone can follow their creative passions in a way that some of us have been very lucky to do for a lot of our lives. And soul-killing day jobs aside, I count myself, now that I'm at quote-unquote retirement age, God, I've been so lucky to be able to follow my creative passions, and what a better world it would be if more people could do that. And Star Trek.
When I talk about it being one planet and we're all in this together, that doesn't mean I think we should all necessarily be of one culture.
No.
It's okay to have different cultures, infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if your way of doing things is going to cause harm to other people, then that's not okay.
Right. Right. But it's when self-interest goes beyond self-interest into selfishness, then that's where a lot of problems arise. Or how much do I need? How much do other people need? There's plenty here for all of us if we just share it a little better. We, not to get too political anymore, but just think, for 1 billionaire we could have 1,000 millionaires, right? Or 10,000 people that are earning $100,000 a year, if my off the top of my head math is right.
Yeah.
But just think about that for a minute, and wouldn't as a society we'd be better off without a few people accumulating a lot of resources.
Well, and here we are talking about all the positive things of the Artemis 2 mission, but something that holds me back from being too excited about it is that it started as an ego project for a certain American political figure who wanted to throw money at something that would, in theory, make people happy. And it has made some people happy, but
I don't know if I'd go that far with it. I hear what you're saying, but I think there has been, among people like me and my wife and people, the older generation of astronaut loving people, there has been a desire for the rebirth of this exploration part of we do in America. And as one of the podcasters I watch about political things said this week, wouldn't it be wonderful if more of our energies went to this rather than all the wars and other things that we'd put energies in? And I think, though, even though someone may want to claim this as like, I did this, I think you actually would have to go back to John Kennedy if you want to see where this really came from, because the the roots of Artemis are not as recent as you think they are. The opportunity for various reasons may have come more recently, but the desire to do this has been in a generation of people that were alive when the first ones were happening and when the space shuttle was happening, and kind of this long underground movement toward, again, what I see as a more Star Trek-like, let's explore the universe together thing. And one of the things that watching this press conference, the unanimity of the people actually doing all the work, doing this, thousands and thousands of people working together to get these 4 people out into space, around the moon, to seeing things and doing things that no one had ever been before, which is so much bigger than American politics. And in this case, especially, there's a Canadian in the crew, and there's a European Space Agency was one of the cooperating agencies, and it goes back to way, way bigger than just one person's ego wanting this for themselves. And honestly, no one in the press, until the politicians got up, no one in the press conference mentioned any politician or any political aim.
Yeah, not faulting anyone at NASA. This project costs around $4 billion, and
which was, I think 2 days worth of this idiot war that we're now in.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking, how many people could be feed and house and medically take care of for $4 billion, rather than setting 4 people on what was really, in this case, mostly a sightseeing trip? I mean, I'm sure they had some experiments they did up there.
There's a lot of science going on.
Are those experiments going to benefit us $4 billion worth?
Yes. The answer is yes. And if you look at the history of NASA and where they spend the money and how they spend the money, generally the return on dollars and technology, especially technology, our understanding and being able to use new science, the return on the investment in NASA has always been hugely outweighed.
See, I agree with that during the space shuttle and space station era, but just going to the moon and back, I don't really see the benefit.
Okay.
Read up on it.
Honestly, I think we can all agree to disagree on that one too. I mean, I want to get it back to Star Trek proper, but I agree with you, Jeff, that there's a lot of money being spent on things that would really help people in immediate dire need right now. But I also agree with Steve
that either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't think that's where money should come from.
I totally agree with Steve on the war thing.
Yeah.
Where the money, people that have spent dollars on publicity campaigns for themselves or in political positions.
Yeah. I just wish it didn't have to be an either or when it comes to where the money comes from. And
well, I don't think it has to be. I think if we prioritize space more than we prioritize aligning certain people's pockets, that I think it can be a both and. It's not a zero-sum game. It is true exploration of space and science. Always, the benefits always exceed the costs over in aggregate.
Like,
I think that's probably easily demonstrable by people that do track those kind of things. Yes, it's a lot of money, but again, we went to the moon, or we can bomb people for 2 days. And that's where the money, in my opinion, that's where I think we can and use the bombing money to actually give us all health care.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Could have done.
I would like some health care.
Haven't you heard there's not money for that?
All right. These are
for a long time. It's in our Star Trek future
society without money.
Yeah.
Star Trek future is still happening. It's evolving and it's in front of us. And it is, in my opinion, in reaching out into the cosmos, because that does help give us that perspective.
Sure.
As you said, no borders, no lines. All of us, this small thing. It's like you look at a map of England and you think of all the kings and all the people that we have ever heard of that fought all these wars and stuff, and that all happened in an island that's smaller than Illinois.
England itself is about the size of Oregon, the state I live in.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
that's probably including Scotland and Wales. And
No, that's just England.
yeah,
okay.
When you throw in Scotland and Wales, yeah, I think it's about the size of Illinois.
but is it smaller than Illinois? Because I never think of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like big. We have big states in the Midwest.
You do.
All right. So I want to talk about the Star Trek, more Star Trek specific stuff. Had a handful of them now. Steve, who's your favorite Star Trek captain?
Oh, it's Kirk.
Is it Kirk?
It's always Kirk. But I think he's kind of the template for both decision and compassion, and I think that you see that again and again through the show. He's not perfect, but he is willing to take advice, especially take advice from his command staff, from his two closest advisors. And I think he does a really good job of balancing out the logical concerns of Spock and the emotional concerns of McCoy. If you were to get into a combat situation, who would you want to have leading you? Is it Kirk or is it someone else? And for me, it's generally always Kirk. There's that moment in the Generations movie, I think it is, where it's Kirk and Picard, and there's Picard Gal, the bad guy, Soren, something like that.
Soren.
And you're like, oh my God, what is going to happen? Later in the film, Kirk is on one side of the bridge and Kirk's there instead of McCoy. And you're thinking, Soren's getting his ass kicked. And for me, that's kind of, I like all the other captains, and this is nothing against all the other captains, but Kirk is still my guy.
Jeff, I saw your face. I saw your face when I asked it. So what do you got?
Favorite captain overall, Captain Christopher Pike.
Okay.
A really good choice. He's really, as portrayed currently, he's fabulous.
Yes, Anson Mount is just the best.
Okay.
It's the combat situation. I mean, not just a battle, but a protracted situation. Benjamin Sisko. And he's a close second for favorite captain, period.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, he's high on those two.
Yeah.
Or he should have been a captain a lot earlier than it was.
Yeah.
He should have, but he kind of shot himself in the foot a few times.
They're not a perfect franchise. Star Trek has better and worse seasons, better and worse franchises too.
Oh, yeah.
I would go down Kirk guy because he is the template, right? He is the first, and he kind of set the mold. But man, Pike and Sisko are right up there for me too. I love Sisko. I love Deep Space Nine, and I mean, what Sisko did as a character, what that character meant to that series, just so amazing. Pike is also phenomenal, and part of it's the actor, part of it's the writing, part of it's everything else. But Pike is so good.
And he has the benefit of having 50 years of exploration of the captains too. Now. So the Pike we get now is not the same Pike that's in the chair necessarily in the
right, what they turned it into. Yeah.
Space Nine is not counting the new series among all the Star Trek franchise.
Okay. And that's what I was going to ask too, is do you have a favorite series? I mean, for me, it's always TOS because it, again, started it all, and I love the retro futurism vibe. But Deep Space Nine and Strange New Worlds are right up there for me. Strange New Worlds comes along, I'm like, okay, you're making me pick a favorite second child here. Come on.
And Strange New Worlds also has both Pike and Kirk with a new actor playing Kirk.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that I think they've done that extraordinarily well in recasting the iconic Captain Kirk character and playing him off against the Pike character, younger man, and making it work, making it seem, I can accept that this guy will later be Jim Shatner and behave the way he does in the original series.
And you've heard they've cast...
That's a real joy, too.
You've heard they've cast the new Bones and all them, too, right?
I hadn't heard that fan gossip and fan stuff. I got too much going on in my brain.
So Paul Wesley is who is playing James Kirk in Strange, and I like him a lot. I don't like him. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
Wow.
But I think Paul Wesley is great, and I love Ethan Peck as Spock.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's really good.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
the gal that's playing Nurse Chapel too is fabulous.
Yeah.
All the recasts so far have been really good. I mean, Chapel and Spock, and they're
he's phenomenal.
but still serve on the ship
to make room for.
Yeah, however short of time that may be.
Yeah,
now continuity, but I am not enough of a continuity cop to insist that they dovetail every little single piece of continuity.
See, that was my next question, actually. It was about canon. Because you've got 60 years of Star Trek. You've got alternate realities. You've got alternate timelines. You've got the mirror universe. You've got all these different things happening. When Discovery started, there was such a huge uproar about the Klingon look. There's been pushback about Strange New Worlds because at one point in TOS, Kirk says, I met Pike once at this one thing. But now in Strange New Worlds, he's been on the Enterprise like how much? So you've met Pike more than once.
Like
the point.
3 out of the last 7 episodes.
I mean, somebody mocked up a Star Trek novel cover that says, "Why are you always on my starship?" And it's Pike and Kirk. You have that kind of pushback as well. It's like, well, Kirk said this 60 years ago on this episode, but then he's doing it this way. And then you've got the Klingon thing with Discovery, or even with the Ridges versus non-Ridges when that happened, the motion picture.
Consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. I don't remember who said that.
Oh, okay.
But I hear that. One of my favorite continuity things was on Space Nine when they go back in time and interface with the Trouble with Tribbles.
Yes, yeah, right. Classic episode. One of my favorites.
It's a brilliant episode, and is there, and
the whole crew.
And a whole bunch of people from Deep Space Nine. And I think it's her, but it could be one of the other ones. They're looking at the Klingons, and the Klingons are all classic Trek, Klingons with Fu Manchu mustaches and stuff. And one of them turns to him and says, looks very stern and says something like, "We did not talk about that.
And we're not discuss this with outside."
That would be the end of it.
Yes.
It's like, and I love whoever wrote that. I love that person so much.
That was David Gerald. I mean,
was it David who wrote that again?
I wish they just completely ignored it though, because what I've always heard, Gene Roddenberry's explanation was the Klingons always looked like that. We just weren't able to see them correctly in the original episodes. And to go back and fix it, and then Enterprise had to stick their foot in it and actually give us an in-story reason for them to be 3 different appearances. And
that's that hobgoblin I was just referencing.
Yes.
And Gerald was doing what they call TV writing and movie writing, hanging a lantern on that, realizing that everyone is going to see an inconsistency here. And instead of explaining it, you just say, hey, there's an inconsistency here. And then you write it off very quickly, and then people move on. And I think that's an appropriate thing to do. And the same with Kirk. And how many times did Kirk and Pike? Who cares?
Yeah.
50 years ago, 60 years ago, when they were writing the original series, no one was saying 60 years from now, someone's going to want to put Kirk and Pike in a story together. And therefore, we should say, oh, we met many times.
When they do try to fix it, I don't think Enterprise fixed the Klingon thing very well. There were a lot of issues with Enterprise. I know it's probably Jeff's least favorite.
Now, because Section 31 exists.
Okay.
Michelle Yeoh was in it a lot that I really started enjoying it.
Yeah.
There were a couple.
You're talking Discovery, not Enterprise.
I'm sorry, Discovery, not Enterprise. One of the series that I actually bailed on and did not watch the final 2.
And it was a better season, but it's still not something I want to go back and watch again.
And my wife tells me that the last season, which had a lot of cross-continuity, look-forward stuff, that she really liked that season, and I may go back and watch it sometime.
It is of the Enterprise, and here's the thing about Enterprise. And in the whole Berman era, right? This is a Roddenberry mandate from the very beginning, despite the fact that we had The Naked Now as an episode very early in Next Gen. Roddenberry was very clear. We're not just rehashing the original series. And when Rick Berman was brought in, he wasn't a Star Trek fan. He didn't know Trek. He didn't care. He was a TV producer and he made television. And a lot of the people that worked on Trek during that era, when they were first brought in, were not hardcore Trek heads the way we are, or we would want them to be. this really showed in Enterprise, because they're doing things in Enterprise that are outside of canon, with the Ferengi showing up at one point. What? But you've got weird stuff happening there. Season 4 comes along. They finally bring in a fan as the showrunner, Manny Koto. But at that point, I feel like things are shifting a little bit at Paramount. Rick Berman's starting to show his tenure at Paramount. He's on his way out, more than likely. And while they are trying to clean up some of the continuity things that had come up, the writing's on the wall, man.
It's interesting that all three of us bailed on that series at some point. And the only other series I had trouble with that way, and I haven't seen The Academy at all because we dropped our sub before that, was the first season of Discovery.
And there was so much upheaval at the beginning of that with who was going to be running the show, and then him not being attached to the show. The show was going to be an anthology series at one point where it was going to be multiple stories each season, and just the whole thing is just kind of a mess. And
was this Discovery Goes to the Future?
Actually became a little Star Warsy at that point, which was correct.
Maybe a little.
Seasons that worked for me were the ones where Michelle Yeoh was actually in the lot as the mirror universe character.
Clearly loves playing evil. She does it so well.
And she was just delightful to watch.
Really was.
But then, I don't know if you watched Section 31.
I did.
Which she's the star of.
I actually liked it. And I know I'm like the one person.
I don't just think it's bad Star Trek. I thought it was a bad story, period. And even people I like in the cast, like Michelle Yeoh, I don't think we're doing a good job. By her. I mean, I don't want there to be bad Star Trek.
Yeah, it didn't bother me. As a caper film, I thought it was okay.
I love caper films.
I will admit right now, I am a person that could watch Michelle read the phone book. Okay. So I have a massive collection of her films on DVD and HD and Blu-ray and stuff. So there's definitely a prejudice.
Sure.
So Steve, you haven't watched yet. Derek, where are you on Fleet Academy?
Oh, I'm totally caught up.
Started?
I'm totally caught up. Yeah, I'm totally caught up.
I honestly don't even know what it's about aside from the title.
So, and that's another thing that the continuity people got so upset about. You've got a half Klingon, half Jem'Hadar. But the Jem'Hadar were all men and they couldn't reproduce. They said that in Deep Space Nine, darn it.
Okay, but it's been 800 years.
And what's the race that has the half black, half white that was in TOS? Yeah, and they say in TOS
the
last two. They're the last two of their race. But, well, you have one in Section 31, and now you have... But, again, it's been 800 years.
And also kind of ignores the idea, if those two were off the planet, surely there were others off the planet also.
And also the fact that
Star Trek in time travel.
Time travel, Q. There's so many things that could have brought...
Oh, let's not even go to Q.
Don't even go to Q. So I appreciate when they try to fix things a little bit when it's handled well. When Discovery goes to the future at the end of season 2 to kind of undo all of the stuff that was messing with canon to get them out of the equation finally, I appreciate that. And I thought it was done enough to satisfy me as somebody who does care about continuity. But then there's also the episode of Strange New Worlds where they go back in time to stop an agent there is talking about, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anybody, but...
Well, it was an alternate reality. They were back in time and an alternate reality.
An agent has been trying to destroy a bridge or do something to disrupt humanity. But at one point, the Romulan agent says they've been trying to do this thing, but time keeps pushing back. Time keeps pushing back to reset things and make things happen, which is why there isn't a World War III now or a eugenics war now, because time keeps pushing things back a little bit and all that. And I'm thinking, okay, if you're going to get really hung up on continuity, it's just time reasserting itself and fixing things. Sure, maybe Kirk did meet Pike 4, 5, 6, 7 times. But when we saw it in the original series, time hadn't reasserted itself yet or messed things up yet. So it kind of still works in my head in a very loosey-goosey kind of way.
Yeah, if you've watched enough Doctor Who or if you read the old Time Master Rules, Time Tricks, there's a lot of flexibility potentially in time. And
right.
But also fit points in time.
Yeah.
Scientifically, we're not even sure time exists. Right. That our perception of this is our perception of this.
Yeah.
And there's no underlying thing that says this is reality, right? But as a creator, my point is that the Well, continuing the spirit of something, a new generation of creators has to have enough freedom in order to do stories that are interesting to them and that are meaningful to them.
Sure.
And people were asking me, when you were writing Dragonlance novels, what were you, how concerned were you about continuity in the novels? And this is knowing that Tracy Hickman's a friend of mine, and I'm friends with all the people that wrote that, and Margaret Weiss had a baby shower for my first child, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
So I'm pretty deeply into that crew. And my answer was, my first concern when writing all my stories was to find a place in the world that was unpopulated enough with history that I could actually then do what I wanted to do within the story, within the framework that I had. So, and that's, every creator should be allowed that ability, especially when you're a generation or two generations, when you're removed from the original thing, to find and tell the stories that matter to you, whether it's in an uninhabited or less inhabited, or the Star Trek universe, or Star Wars. The Star Wars skeleton crew, it's like they're on a planet that's way the hell out here and hasn't been affected by the rest of Star Trek. And after you get off over a kind of lackluster first episode, it was super cool.
Yeah, I love Skeleton Crew.
And that's why I liked when Discovery went to the 32nd century, because now you have this whole area that you can play in. That's why I really wanted to like Section 31, because it was pre-Enterprise C, and I wanted to see that era a little bit, but it just
didn't work for you. Sometimes it won't. I mean, not every great idea is an actual great idea.
Well, and sometimes I think the author needs to ask themselves, okay, I've got this idea for a story, and I would like it to fit in this universe, but does it?
Right.
What comes to mind for me is a recent comic book series set in Strange New Worlds. In my opinion, it did not fit in Strange New Worlds very well. It felt to me much more like a Doctor Who story. If they had taken the problem that was the impetus of Seeds of Destruction and made a Doctor Who story, I think it would have been really good. As a Strange New World story, I thought it was terrible.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you're writing Twilight fan fiction, and sometimes you're writing important to know which one you're doing, whether it's in continuity or not.
So Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey were not two things that I thought would come up during a Star Trek discussion. I expected the politics. I didn't expect this.
Well, one thing that could be argued that's good about nothing Star Trek that's off screen is ever official is I can just ignore that Star Trek series.
Sure.
Okay, that never happened.
Right.
Star Wars has always been, if it's published, well, okay, except for the original Marvel comics, but the novels were always official. Then they kind of hit the reset
until they were.
These ones are extended universe. They're kind of what ifs, but everything beyond this, and now even every comic book is considered in continuity for Star Wars
until they decide it's not.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, though, is that they control it much tighter. The people that make Star Trek novels, comics, have a broader ability to cover a broader area because they're not being micromanaged. If you write a Star Wars story to be officially published, someone from Lucasfilm is going over it with a fine-tooth comb and saying, okay, this works, this doesn't, this needs to be changed.
Well, it was like that.
But it wasn't.
It was like that in the original novel run, too. The Timothy novels had that issue. The character, and that was originally going to be an evil clone of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Lucas, no, that's not happening at all. So,
and it was sorted back and forth with Star Wars, certainly, because when the original Star Wars role-playing game came out, there was Troy Denning and Andrea Hayday and I did a book called Galaxy Guide Number 2, in which I think the first one was about the planets, and the one we did was about all the alien races that we knew through Return of the Jedi at that time. So, and literally Troy and Andrea and I, Troy was the main writer, and Andrea and I were his auxiliary writers. We literally made up all of backgrounds for all the alien races that were known at the time.
And this was the West End Games version.
And it was just, it was basically do what you want.
Yeah.
Have fun. We don't have a lot on these. You do, and we did it. And then that became continuity.
Right. There are things that
Denning wrote a bunch of Star Wars novels.
Yeah.
Well,
and then they had another shift. And now I think
for Star Trek,
none of that is now continuity. So be aware things are going to shift. Things are going to change.
What were you saying about the tech manuals, Jeff?
Oh, when they wrote the tech manuals, they were really extrapolating an awful lot. And some of it was important enough they made it in continuity. And then they were popular enough, they were brought on. And I mean, we have the word for panels in Next Gen era ships because they were designed by the Akutis.
Yeah.
The same way we have Jeffries tubes because he was a producer.
Exactly. Matt Jeffries.
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say there was no interference in Star Trek novels, because Peter David did write in one of his But I Digress articles, he didn't name names, but he did say there was an editor at Pocket Books that for whatever reason didn't like him and would give notes.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not like no one was looking at it, but Star Trek still just never had the policing from the parent company that the Star Wars novels have had.
Right.
And generally a good thing for creativity.
Yeah.
But until it gets to the point where you have people that don't care, that aren't fans of the original, shepherding new series, and then you're like, they have no money in Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because there are certain things that you need, even though you want to have creativity so people can tell the stories that they want.
Going a little further afield, the Doctor Who novels, especially from back in the 80s, 90s, when there wasn't any new Doctor Who on TV, they weren't officially continuity. And then, 15 years ago, there was one little short, like a 15-minute short with the 8th Doctor, who had only ever appeared on screen once, but had been in tons of novels.
Right.
And he starts naming companions, and he names companions from the novels and the audio dramas. And I tell you, we Doctor Who fans went wild. Oh my gosh, he mentioned these characters that have never been on screen, but we know are companions. And when something like that does make it in, it just warms a fan's heart.
Sure.
Someone's paying attention.
Yes, someone's paying attention. And there's complaints about fan service sometimes, but sometimes fan service feels really good. The third season of Picard was mostly fan service, and I loved it.
I would argue it's almost all fan service. I struggled with season 3. I thought it was almost too much for me. It was like, oh, guys, I mean, come on. Y'all said it was never going to be a Next Gen reunion show, and what are you doing?
It was what made it really fun. But the Next Gen was never my favorite show.
I was like, I don't need to see Data again. You killed him twice. I don't need to see him again, and it just feels like whatever. That said, I did like some of the nods, the hologram of Tasha Yar and all that. But Lore is one of my absolute least favorite villains when it comes to all of Star Trek. So I didn't care about the Lore stuff. I really felt like the Borg have been neutered since First Contact, so I didn't care about that. So yeah, it wasn't. Plus, the actor that plays Picard's son is an absolute terrible human being in the Outlander show. And I had just gotten done watching that season of Outlander, and I felt like
his character is terrible.
Yes, his character is an awful person.
I thought you were saying the actor was a terrible person.
Oh, no. The character is a terrible person and deserves everything that happens to him.
An Outlander, I don't remember.
He does things that I don't want to say on the show to the daughter. And anyway, he's terrible. And he dies at the end of his season horribly, which is great and happy for me because he's a terrible person. Every time he turned up on screen, I would say something I'm not going to say on the show about him because I'm trying to maintain the family-friendly rating. And I was glad he's done. He's not going to be in the rest of the show. And then he turns up in Picard season 3. And I know it's a different character and he's an actor, whatever, but come on, man. I just got done with it.
Well, Anson Mount is a very creepy character in Scarpetta right now. We've been in the middle of. So you know, yes, they're actors. You gotta.
I know.
It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to put that stuff down.
When they're so good as the villain, it's like,
Right.
But no, I mean, I like Picard season 3, but I think Picard season 1 and 2 were underrated for what they were.
I enjoyed them all.
I didn't like the season.
It was my favorite Trek, maybe, but there were some great moments.
Tried to ignore everything that happened in season 2. Kind of undid everything in terms of progression with the Borg, Picard's relationship with the Romulan that worked at the Vineyard and all that. It's like, yeah, whatever. We're gonna have a reunion show now.
That's that. Let the writers have some fun.
But it's the same. But it was the same showrunner between season 2 and season 3. So it's not like there was a new crew that came in.
Excuses for showrunners.
But hey, Tiffany Shepis was in season 3, and I like her as an actress. She's a horror actress. She's married to Terry Matalas, or not? Yeah, Terry Matalas. So she was a Trill doctor on the new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just to see her in Star Trek was cool. So
one of the current Star Trek comic book series, Agnes, Borg Queen Agnes is in it.
Okay.
Which is that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, fan service can be fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that Redux, the Turtles Redux on Deep Space Nine was just joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I think, I have to make sure see what season that was in, because if it was, I don't have season 3, and I can get season 3 pretty cheap right now.
No, it was 5 or 6 because Worf's in it.
Yeah, Worf was in it, and it was an anniversary year. It was a big anniversary year for Star Trek. It was the same year that Voyager did the Sulu episode.
Yeah, flashback.
Yeah. So whatever year that was.
And Voyager was Star Trek. There's a lot of. There are enough shows that there should be a show that could appeal to anyone. I mean, my
that's
daughter
how I feel too. There's enough.
Really love Voyager because of Janeway, the young woman that was. And modeling is really important for people. It's for someone that,
which is one of the reasons why I'm so disappointed about what's happening with Starfleet Academy. Again, not to get too political or woke. How long did I go before saying that? But Starfleet Academy's got so many different characters that people can look up to the same way certain folks in different communities could look up to Dax and Space Nine and that sort of thing. You got a gay Klingon, is what I'm
anyone that thinks Star Trek is not a woke series has not been paying attention to.
You're missing the point, and I don't want to get into a why do conservatives like Star Trek conversation, because that's not what we're here to do. But you're missing the point, man. It's been like that from the very beginning. It's been progressive.
Star Trek was the first series television show to ever have an interracial kiss for him.
You've got that. You've got a woman on the bridge who's treated like an equal like everybody else. You've got a person of color on the bridge who's treated like everybody else. You've got the Asian American treated like everybody else.
It doesn't matter. In the second season, we've got the Russian because
and it
Rush complained to Roddenberry that there were no Russians on the ship. So we got a Russian.
See, I've always heard that was an urban legend. I always heard that the real reason was the monkeys was big and they wanted somebody with a monkey's haircut.
Well, I think some of them.
Well, they could have had someone with a monkey's haircut that wasn't Russian.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I love Chekhov, so it's all good. There's another continuity thing, though. The whole Khan recognizing Chekhov. But season 1, season 2.
He wasn't actually in the show, but he could have been in the crew. You don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's always been my personal explanation is just because we didn't see him on the bridge doesn't mean he wasn't on the crew roster somewhere and Khan encountered him.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Memory anyway, right?
There's room for that is what I'm getting at. There's room for these things to happen.
Does that ruin Star Trek Wrath of Khan? If it ruins Star Trek Wrath of Khan for you, I have a William Shatner saying, and it is, get a life.
Yeah. We have been going for about an hour and a half. I don't know what it's going to turn into with the edit, but I want to start wrapping up. What do you want to see next in the world of Star Trek? We're in this weird spot where we may or may not see Starfleet Academy and Strange New Worlds end the way they want it to. They've all been shot already, so it's just a matter of spending the time to do the post-production on it. And with what's happening with Paramount, there's been talk about forgetting everything and starting with a new movie. Who knows what's going to happen? So what do you want to see? And I'll start with Steve on this one.
Good, because I have no idea what I want to see.
Okay, well, then go to Jeff.
First thing you said was that both these seasons are shot, but they may not spend the time and money to.
I suspect there's going to be some pushback on that, just because of how things are.
It would be insane not to do that.
I agree.
If they don't do it, they should turn it over to the fans and let the fans do it. Because there are fans out there that can do just as good a job editing these things and getting the special effects finished and that kind of stuff as they could do themselves.
I agree. I mean, I watch a lot of fan films and I listen to a lot of fan audio.
I mean, I just watched the Carter crew has in the last month has created a new green screen thing that
Technology.
you can run a laptop computer now that gives you HD quality green screen work. The fans can finish it, and I'd like that. The thing I want to see in Star Trek is for our world to move more in the direction of Star Trek. And for me, the return to the moon, the return to the space is that direction, because we can do that and take care of the people and Earth, and partly because it gives us the perspective that all of us are on this little blue marble. But I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, because maybe he has some actual in-continuity ideas. While he talks, I'll see if I can come up with something that's not as airy-fairy as, I want to see the world move in the direction of Star Trek.
I've said for a long time, I want a Star Trek future. I don't want to go through World War III to get it.
Right.
That's what I want. So anyway, what do you got, Jeff?
I'm really hoping Paramount doesn't pull a Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers in the past few years has had several projects which they finish and then shelve.
Batgirl? Yeah.
Batgirl, there was a Looney Tunes movie that I understand has actually found a distributor where I can see it.
Coyote versus Acme? Yeah.
Yeah. So I want Paramount. I imagine there must be some kind of tax incentive for Warner Brothers to not have released those. And I hate that. And
I hate that with a fiery passion. That's
I
the kind of
hope
stuff that
Paramount
the
can
Willow
follow that
series
word.
canned.
And I want to be clear. I have not heard anything about season 2 of Starfleet Academy or the rest of Strange New Worlds not being finished and released. The doom and gloom part of my brain that likes to get really loud sometimes is like, well, if Paramount's going to go ahead and tear down the sets for Starfleet Academy, what's their incentive to even show season 2 at this point? So
That's you should get a tax write-off for boxing up creative work.
Right.
Or if you do, I think it should immediately go into the public domain.
Ooh, I like that.
One series that we have not mentioned at all in an hour and a half is Prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is the people who did the voices for Prodigy have all moved on to other projects. So season 3 is just not going to happen. But I would love to see IDW do a Prodigy series.
Like a comic book?
Or season 2 of Prodigy left off, because I really enjoyed that series a lot. I mean, it was supposed to be aimed at kids. I'm just a big kid. I loved it.
I struggled with Prodigy.
I never watched Prodigy or Lower Decks. We just didn't get to it before.
I struggled with Prodigy at first because I felt like this isn't Star Trek. This is more Star Wars than Star Trek. But then they did the
first half of the first season were very Star Wars.
But then they did the episode where they're all existing in different times, like the time dilation thing happening. It is like, dude, this is so Star Trek. I'm so in.
Yeah. As far as on screen and therefore in continuity, from what I understand, yes, there's a political aspect also, but part of the problem with Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy is they are incredibly expensive to produce. And so if we could have another animated series, not a joke one like Lower Decks, which was in continuity, but it was a comedy, but have, I don't even care what time period it takes place in, but have just some good Star Trek that, because it's animated, it has a lower budget. You don't need to have big names in the cast. When it came to Lower Decks, I used some of the names, but they weren't A-listers. Prodigy, I think, was, except for when they got people from Voyager, they were all people that you would only know their names if you look up credits in other animated projects.
Correct. Yeah.
They were professional voice actors. They weren't stars that you would necessarily know.
And we had 3 characters from Voyager in that, right? It was Janeway, the Doctor, and Chakotay. That's right. They saved Chakotay for me. They made him an interesting character, finally.
Yep. Well, and if you love the Doctor, Steve, the EMH, boy, do you need to watch Starfleet Academy.
I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it.
So
cool. Is Robert Picardo back as
Yes. And he is
I
so
had
amazing.
no idea.
Yeah. I have a hard time naming my favorite part about Starfleet Academy because there are so many parts that are my favorite, and Picardo is one of those. But anyway, if Paramount is looking to keep Star Trek in the public consciousness, and they need to, it's one of their only really big properties, they need to be making more Star Trek. And if they need to do an animated series to keep costs down, I'm okay with that.
It's crazy now that animated series are less expensive than live action, when traditionally animation has been much more expensive to produce. But that's before live action became half CGI, which is animation, which is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So that's where I stand. And then as far as out of continuity stuff, IDW has done some great Star Trek comics in the past few years. They've also done a couple stinkers. It happens, especially when you get different hands at the writing helm. If anything, I wish maybe IDW had a stronger editorial vision on what they wanted for the Star Trek comics. But as long as IDW or anyone keeps making Star Trek comics, I'm going to keep buying them.
Did you read the Marvel comics when Marvel had the Paramount license, like in the 90s?
Yes. Well, Marvel was
that after DC or before DC had that?
Well, yes. Marvel started with the motion picture, and then after that, and then they had like 2 years of comics, and then they dropped the license. It just didn't do as well as Star Wars did. And then DC had it for a couple decades, and then Marvel had it in the 90s, which included a series called Star Trek Early Voyages, which was Pike's Enterprise.
That's how I was going to bring that up if you had read any of that, because I read them all. I loved them. I hated the way it ended, because the last issue, they're like, yeah, we don't have the license anymore, so how do you think it ended? Basically was how that comic ended. It was on a cliffhanger.
I feel like the rug
that happens so often in comics too.
Right. But very rarely have I seen...
Sorry, you don't have an issue to wrap it up.
Rarely have I seen, though, the editors actually put in a word box or word balloon telling you this is the end. How do you think it ended? I bet it's amazing.
Yeah.
I actually like that better than just ending without that word box.
Sure.
Which is what happens a lot. Used to, especially, maybe now does still. It used to happen a lot in comics where the comic would just stop.
Yeah.
And whether it was bi-monthly or monthly or whatever, it's just bang, it's gone without even a little, hey, this is our last issue, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was meant to be limited series, but they didn't tell you it was a limited series.
Right. Dan Abnett was one of the co-writers on that, and I loved it, man. I really loved that series. I loved it all, though. They had a Deep Space Nine. They had a Starfleet Academy with Nog at Starfleet Academy, which was really great. Yeah, those were really fun.
I think the best DS9 comic book series, though, was when Malibu had the license.
Okay.
Malibu did some great DS9 comics, and the penciler on that was Leonard Kirk. And I've enjoyed his work on other projects, too, but I think he was just the best DS9 artist. Even still.
I mean, my hope is that they'll continue to do Star Trek in some manner in the spirit of the original series and the distillation of all that came from that. It occurred to me as you guys were talking that Star Trek is maybe harder to do than new Star Wars things, because Star Trek is science fiction. And so it depends heavily on science and on thinking futurist and on continuing the Star Trek ethos and that kind of stuff. Whereas Star Wars is fantasy. And whenever you're creating fantasy, you have a lot more leeway, even though Lucasfilm has an iron grip on continuity now in some sense. But still, it's much easier to write a fantasy story as someone has written them than it is to write a hard science
fiction. I imagine. Yeah.
And it's not as hard science as 2001 or whatever. Relatively, Star Trek is still fairly hard science. Yeah, we're given the transporter, we're given the warp drive, and we're given advances in technology and medicine, but it's still, and that's why we've got pads and we've got communicators that we can, even at one point, flip phone. I was at a outside of Chicago Cubs game waiting for a phone call, and suddenly the communicator tweet went off in my pocket because I pulled out my phone, and it turned out it wasn't my phone. It was my friend who was with me who also had the Star Trek communicator tweet as his ring at the time. And that's why we get more of that kind of stuff. And I'm hoping that more Star Trek that emphasizes humanity and exploring space and being being kind to each other despite all our foibles.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
So Paramount just a few days ago, as of this recording, well, maybe not just a few days ago, but just recently formed a new book publishing imprint to basically do media tie-in material for all of their different properties. It was part of like the Skydance, Simon and Schuster deal. Some private investment firm is involved, that sort of thing. They really haven't talked too much about exactly what they're going to be doing, other than they want to expand, quote, how fans engage with the company's revered content while also creating new opportunities to develop original IP, unquote. I assume Star Trek's going to be part of the folio there.
Well, and does that mean they're looking for submissions?
I haven't seen anything like that in the Star Trek
Almost
novel.
sounds like it's an invitation for fans to write.
Yeah, which would be
good or it could be bad.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching, I said earlier, a bunch of fan films, and I listen to a lot of fan audio, and a lot of it's not very good. But
the unspoken dirty secret of fan fiction.
But people are doing it, man, and they're having a good time doing it. And they're not hurting anybody. And they're not twisting what Star Trek is, and I think that's the thing, right? Yeah, Star Wars also generates a lot of fan films and fan media and all that. But I feel like even the worst of the Star Trek fan films that I've seen still get it. Still get the Star Trek message and the philosophy behind it. And I love that. And I want to see more Star Trek media. I want another live action show. I want a live action show that'll last more than 10 episodes because it didn't cost $1 billion an episode to produce. I don't think we're ever going to get back to the 26 episode seasons, but you need more than 10. I feel like Starfleet Academy would have had a fighting chance if there's more than 10 episodes per season for them. Some of my favorite episodes are there in that season. The one season we got, I feel like we're quoted up by the B story. Let the B story be its own episode. Give me, and I don't want to say anything because Steve hasn't seen it, but there is an episode about one of the characters that is great and is told from her point of view, except when it's not. And then we have all this other stuff happening, which is important stuff, but it interrupts the perspective. There's a weird perspective violation with who's telling the story here, what story we're watching. And
the A story, B story format is something I'm not very fond of.
It can work. It can work, but I feel like it didn't work.
Sometimes it's not. The Simpsons employs it to funny effect a lot, but generally, well, what was the B story in Wrath of Khan? Or in Space Seed. What was the B story in Space Seed?
I don't remember. Was there one?
Of course there wasn't.
I don't remember.
If anything, the B story in Wrath of Khan was about Kirk aging.
Right. Well, that's part of the theme, but I actually meant to say Space Seed. If you look at the original tracks, what was the B story in Space Seed? What was the B story and what are little girls think of offhand? What was the B story? Just name one of these stories. Yes, they had in the What Are Little Girls Made Of? There was the romance between Christine and Corby, which they played up in the Brave New World. But it wasn't really a B story. It was woven in as part of the main story. Correct?
I just watched this morning Star Trek All Our Yesterdays from season 3 of the original series. And I suppose you could maybe argue there's a B story there because the characters do get separated. I would almost say Kirk, if you had to say one or the other, Kirk's adventure is the B story. The real story is what's going on with Spock and McCoy, and Spock realizing
Spock and McCoy certainly has the more emotional impact.
And
that story, the Spock and McCoy part of that spawned 2 novels.
It's referenced in the novel that I'm reading right now.
I don't think the Kirk side of that spawned anything.
Right.
No, it was the Greg Cox novel. That
it wasn't really a story. It was this part where the people are split and then they come back together. It wasn't that Spock and McCoy's part of that story is really serious. So let's have a lighter-hearted thing with Kirk going on somewhere else, which is a lot of what the B stories are. The B stories are often, in my opinion, in a lot of things today, the kind of light comical story to offset the dramatic story, or the other way around.
True.
Do we always need that? I don't think so. And I think, as you just pointed out, you might be better off with splitting the B story. If it's a good story, split it into its own story. Let's not follow the formula so much that we always have to have an A and a B story. Maybe sometimes it's good. Maybe sometimes it's not. But
so I do want to say one thing real quick about something else I'd like to see Star Trek do. Have either of you listened to Star Trek Con?
No.
Jeff, have you listened to it?
No.
It's official. It's legit. It's an audio drama. Story by Nicholas Meyer, had some input on it.
Okay.
It's written by David Mack and Kirsten Beyer. It is official. It's in continuity, and it follows Khan after Space Seed. Naveen Andrews plays Khan.
Oh, cool.
So he's in it, but the overall, like the story that kind of leads into that, George Takei is in it. Tim Russ is in it.
Nice.
So you've got those two doing stuff, and then this historian who wants to learn more about what happened at Ceti Alpha 5 or 6 or whatever. It's really good.
Ceti Alpha 5.
It's really good. It's available on YouTube. Each episode is about 30 to 40 minutes long, and it's like 8 episodes long.
Is it just audio drama?
It's just audio. But it's so good. And because it's from the Star Trek people, from the Paramount people, you've got the official music, the official sound effects. And Naveen Andrews is amazing as Khan.
And no, I really like him as an actor. I was just thinking the other night, Evans. I have not seen him in that much stuff since Lost.
Oh, he's so good. So good. But it follows what happens with Khan and the woman that joined Khan from the crew of the Enterprise and their whole relationship and what's going on there and all that. It's really good.
Lieutenant Mira Romaine?
Yeah.
Yes.
And this
sound deep into my brain this stuff is. Really, I have no actual memory of that. But my brain just said, oh yeah, that's Lieutenant Mira.
Yeah. I want more of that. I want to hear more official audio dramas from the Star Trek people. Those are the cheapest things to produce because you just got to put a couple of people in a booth.
Well, and here's a stupid idea. You could do those, and then if it goes well, you could animate to it.
There you go. I like it. Jeff, you were about to say something before I had to butt in there.
Well, actually, relates to audio. The last thing I wanted to say before we go is I wanted to promote a fan project that's actually been over with for a few years, but I really love it. It's called Star Trek Endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
And the impetus for it goes back to the original series, the Kelvin race that came from the Andromeda Galaxy. Well, now there is a multicultural Federation, Klingons, Romulans mission to the Andromeda Galaxy. And so it's the Starship Endeavor is the Federation ship that is part of this. And so they call it the Omega Quadrant because it's a completely different galaxy that they're in.
Wildman from Naomi Wildman, the little girl from Voyager, is one of the main characters.
That's really the only carryover character from other Star Treks is Naomi Wildman from Voyager, who's not a little girl anymore. She's a Starfleet officer. And it's really great.
It's a fan production, so I mean, go into knowing that. But I thought it was really good too. Hated the way it ended, but that was because of real life stuff that happened.
Yeah, agreed.
One of the lead actors passed, but it's I listen to a lot of audio. I'm in the podosphere. I'm listening to a lot. Khan is really good. I'm listening to one right now called Star Trek Resilience, which comes out monthly. I'd recommend that one as well. But yeah, and of course I watch a lot of Star Trek YouTube channels, Trek Culture and a few others. So Steve Shives and that sort of thing. So anyway, any final thoughts?
Alive.
Yeah, keep Trek alive. There you go. That's probably the
Live long and prosper.
There you go. Jeff, you can do it, right? You can do. Yeah, I've seen you do that 100%. I would sit in my classroom in grade school, holding my chin in my hand to force my fingers to do that, so that I could learn how to do that last back.
Yeah, unless you're lucky, you have to practice it.
You do have to I did have to practice, but now it's so like I can do it.
We're all doing the Spock salute for those of you listening.
And I just subscribed to Star Trek Con in my podcatcher.
I hope you enjoy it, and I'm eager to hear what you think about it.
I bet I will. It'll be interesting to see how it differs from other media that has covered the same time period.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that with the Eugenics Wars novels. Yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoy it. Jeff, thank you for doing this, man. Podcastcadia is where you can be found. Yeah.
Oh yes.
podcast.
You also find links to every newest episode of Rider Monster Kid Radio.
Podcast Cadia. Go check that out. And Steve, I know you got a list, but what's the best? But you got, yeah.
SDSullivan.com.
Yep.
Will always get to you where I am. If you want to go to paysteve.com, that'll probably send you to my Patreon. I'm on Facebook, like under my own name. You can find me. And I still have some room left on my friends list, though I don't update that. I don't go in and cull those as often as I should.
Steve Sullivan. You'll find links to his many movie reviews, links to his many books, including Dr. Cushing's Chamber of Horrors, which you can find on Amazon and other fine book-selling establishments.
And Audible. We have a Dr. Cushing audiobook now, which just came out.
Fantastic. It's available on Audible. So go check that out. And while you're looking up things on your Amazon Kindle device, I believe a lot of the original Star Trek novels from like the 70s and 80s are now part of Kindle Unlimited, which means you just pay the one price to be part of Kindle Unlimited and you can download it for free and read it for free. Check it out, basically.
And a lot of those are short. I used to read them back when I was young and read really fast. I could read one of the Blish novels and then after.
I'd knock these out in a day, man. When I was supposed to be doing other things, but yeah, I'd knock them out in a day.
The Blish novels are like a third or a quarter of the novel size of the novels that would come later.
Yeah.
And they're fun. And they sometimes have stuff that didn't make the final cut because they were written from the scripts.
Yes.
From the shooting, the final cut of the show.
Very cool.
The one that stands out for me is Who Mourns for Adonais.
Where Mourns for Adonais.
Yeah, where the lieutenant that Apollo had the hots for is pregnant at the end.
They actually even shot some material for that. I have that Roddenberry Archive Blu-ray release that came out, and it's got some of these little clips here and there of things that were shot but not used, and that's referenced in that too. And that was referenced in one of the Star Trek fan series as well.
Yeah.
That came out. So where they got Michael Forrest back to play.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten that. I actually saw that. That was good.
Yeah, I think I showed it on this vlog. Yeah.
Okay.
So good. So good. There's a lot of good stuff out there, man. Just keep making more good stuff, and don't forget that
whatever Star Trek is your favorite. That's your favorite Star Trek. Enjoy it. I don't think there may be ones we don't like as well, but if it's your favorite, your favorite. There are no bad Star Trek if it's your favorite.
I mean, there's Section 31, but
yeah,
that's my favorite. It's not my favorite, but I did enjoy it.
Whew. That brings us to the end of this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. I hope you had a good time. I had a grand time talking Star Trek with a couple of friends. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Now, I did do something a little different with this episode in terms of editing and processing and everything behind the scenes. I'm curious as to how it worked out. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you even noticed, let me know by dropping me a line. Give me an email at monsterkidradio@gmail.com or leave me a voicemail at 360-524-2484. If you didn't notice anything, then great, I did my job. But if it did sound a little different or whatever, I'm real curious. Let me know what you thought of the recording, the editing, and just the conversation in Star Trek in general. Or if you want to talk about anything you've heard about here on Monster Kid Radio, we would love to hear from you as well. Again, 360-524-2484. We are currently taking phone calls from people telling us what their favorite Vincent Price movie is, because I think Beth and I are going to do another Vincent Price movie down the line. And what we'll do is we'll take all of those voicemails and include that in that episode. I've only gotten a couple of voicemails, so give me a call. Let me know what you think about Vincent Price films and tell me your favorite. You can find our contact information over on our website at monsterkidradio.net. This is also where you're going to find links to every one of our social media presences, Facebook, Twitter, I guess it's X now, Instagram, all of it. We're all over the internet. Just look up Monster Kid Radio or follow the links in the show notes over there. We also have our Amazon affiliate link over there. You know I'm going to say it. Please consider using the Amazon affiliate link if you're going to do any shopping on Amazon, because it helps us out a little bit here at the show. What also helps us out is Patreon. If you want to follow us on Patreon, you can do that for free. And what happens is, in the middle of the week, when I start posting the show notes to all of our social media channels, just to make sure everybody knows there's a new episode, when I post them on Patreon, I let you know what's coming up on the next episode of the podcast. That's the only place I announce it. So you got to follow us over there on Patreon if you want to be ahead of the game. Of course, you can help support us financially through Patreon as well. That always helps us out too. And I got to tell you, for those of you who do that, thank you so much. It means the world to Beth and I to know that y'all are able to help us out that way. But the best way to help us out is just spread the word, share the links, let people know what we're doing here on Monster Kid Radio. When we talk about a different topic, sometimes outside of the norm, like last week with Phantasm or this week with Star Trek, we do try to make our presence known in those fandom circles online. For example, I did find a Phantasm Facebook group that I posted the episode into, and you know I'm going to be doing that with Star Trek as well. But if there's any Star Trek fans in your life that you think might enjoy the conversation that we had, please send them our way. I had so much fun talking about Star Trek. I would love to do more semi-regular Star Trek content in some way, shape, or form. I just don't know how to make it happen, because I don't think it's fair to do it all the time on Bride of Monster Kid Radio, but maybe the occasional special, maybe once a quarter. I don't know. If you have any ideas, so again, shoot me a line, monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Also, while you're online, make sure you check out the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards. The 24th annual ballot is live. You can go over to the Classic Horror Film Boards and check it out and get your votes in by May 1st. You've got categories like Best Film, Best TV, Best Blu-ray, Best Restoration, Best DVD Extras. One of my favorite categories this year, and it seems to be only for this year, and it makes sense, Best Book on 70 Years of Godzilla. Go check that out. Also, there is a Best Podcast category. Not all the best podcasts made the ballot. I'm honored that we did. So thank you so much for those of you who nominate us for this award. We did win the award many, many moons ago, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I'd love for my Rondo Hatton Award to have a tag team partner and maybe win another one, especially now that we're Bride of Monster Kid Radio. But seriously, check it out. There are a lot of incredible shows, and you might start to see some familiar names, because a lot of the people that have been nominated for Best Podcast, I've had them on here as guests. So make sure you check that out, and when you put in your ballot, let them know that you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. It really helps us out. Again, every time you follow up on anything that we talk about here on the show, let them know that you heard about them here, because we want to help promote all the cool stuff happening in every corner of Monster Kiddom. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Galaxy West is copyright 2024. The Meteoroids, it's off their self-titled album. You can find them over at themeteoroids.bandcamp.com. They're also on Facebook and Instagram. I'll make sure there's links to all of this in the show notes. And like I just said, let them know you heard about them here on Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. I will talk to you all next week. Live long and prosper. And ciao.